thank you very much for inviting me to the professional conference this last few days. It's been really fascinating. This is the first time I've done anything like this, really, since getting diagnosed with, with Asperger's back in 2017. Since then, I've been very active online to try to raise awareness, raise acceptance, and be just share my experience and see how well that syncs up with other people. And so far, I think it's going okay. A lot of people seem to be interested, and there's a lot of discussions that get started then on Twitter that I think lead to some really interesting outcomes. But today, I'm going to talk about the interesting experience of navigating a world that, of course, has not been established or set up by the autistic population. I think we could all agree that if the autistic population were in charge, the world would be a very, very different place. It'd certainly be a lot quieter, I would imagine. But it's not, of course. That's not the case. Okay? So I'm going to be thinking about how it is for autistic children, especially, but also for myself as an autistic teacher, how it is to get through the day. Just, you know, your typical bog standard school day, and the various challenges that kind of pop up, often seemingly from nowhere, that actually a lot of people, even with their best, you know, even with the best will in the world, might not even ever really consider. So as I go through that, I will also be trying my very best just to kind of hit a few of those key myths that still persist about autism, just to try and continue to help dispel them. It's not the work of a day. That's the kind of thing that takes months and months, if not years, to gradually grind away. But I think the more we do it, the better it is. So, yeah, teaching. Obviously, I became a teacher before I was diagnosed as autistic. And if I'm completely honest with you, which is something I aim to be today, I think in a lot of ways, teaching is a bit of a strange career choice for an autistic person. Obviously, it has its pros. You know, we are known for having interesting, special, you know, our special interests that we're fascinated by, that we love to talk about. That fits teaching perfectly. You know, I get, on a semi-regular basis, to stand in front of a bunch of 16-year-old children and talk to them about, I don't know, Tennyson. I love Tennyson, so I'm quite happy. I'm in my element at that point. The problem comes, of course, when they might not want to know. That's something I can't fathom. You know, it's how could you not be interested in the most maudlin, depressing, and miserable poetry of the 19th century? And that's saying something, because the 19th century wasn't exactly noted for being, you know, full of larks and hijinks. But they're not. They're normal human teenage children, so, you know, they're not actually that interested. So we've got a special interest, and that helps, but it's that fear of social interaction, perhaps, which some autistic people feel, the fear of conflict, which I don't know about you. I'm going to do some interaction. I'm a teacher, I can't help it, it's automatic. Put your hand up if you're autistic yourself. I can see you, so that's good. Oh, it's not many. Okay. Keep your hand up then if you're autistic and you're not a big fan of conflict. That hand, it depends. There's a conflict there. Okay, that's quite a few. I think that's the thing. Conflict is quite a scary thing. So as a school teacher, you're in conflict all the time. You really are. You know, you're not you know, fisticuffs, but you're challenging students to, you know, oh, you've got to listen, you've got to pay attention, try and get your work done, all the rest of it. Can make the teaching profession quite difficult, I think, for somebody who is autistic. But for whatever reason, that was the path I chose way back. And now here I am. And I see that I have an opportunity, perhaps, to try to illuminate a little bit about what it is about teaching and school and education in general that is, and how it interacts with the autistic experience. Because the thing is, of course, it's not just teaching, which is a weird kind of career path for an autistic person to take. School itself is a bit of a strange environment to force autistic children into, when you think about it. We obviously have in our culture this expectation that children will go to school from the age of 4 to the age of probably about 18, 19 years old. And we don't really give that a second thought. But when you think about how school is set up, how it works, how it feels, how it sounds, how it smells, it really isn't the perfect environment for an autistic child at all. It takes a very rare type of school to really get that environment down and fit what your typical general kind of autistic person might need. And I do want to make a note at this point, of course, that I'm only one person and all of these observations about autism are just from me. Okay, I can't speak for everybody, and if I say something that you think, hold on, I'm autistic and I don't feel that way, that's fine. I'm not trying to say this is the only way. Just get that disclaimer out there. I've been on Twitter long enough to know that you've got to be careful about these things. But generally speaking, schools aren't set up for autistic children, and that's what I'll go through a bit today. But just a very quick kind of tour through that. You know, you think about the canteen. Remember school lunches? They smell, don't they? They do. They have a very distinct smell. In fact, I would go so far as to say that every single part of a school building has a very distinct smell that you could, if you really wanted to, and I would completely understand if you don't want to, remember if you put your mind to it. Let's go through some. The smell of the science department. Can you remember that? Weird sort of chemically smell. I don't know what causes it. It might be the high stools. I don't know, do they let off a kind of, you know, fume? I'm not sure. Maybe it's the teachers. I don't know. Maybe there's a particular type of cologne or perfume that science teachers are gifted when they do their PGCE. You know, it's like, here, take the whiff and enjoy, you know, inflicting that on generations of students. You've got the smell of the changing rooms, of course, which alters as you go up through school, doesn't it? We all remember that, and we all remember the moment it started to alter, don't we? That first time you smell body odor and you're, what's that? That's interesting. And then from that moment on, all bets are off. The smell of, this is probably just for those people born in the 80s, which might be quite a few of you. The smell of there was always a room. For us, it was the TV room. No idea why. There was always a room where you had to take your shoes off to go in. Put your hand up if you had a room like that at primary school. A few of you, not many. Oh, God. Observational comedy, eh? But yeah, you have to take your shoes off and you go in. For us, it was the TV room. For some, it's the dance studio or the drama room. Very often the drama room. You take your shoes off. And of course, that meant that room had a very particular smell too. That lovely, lovely, cheesy smell that we all adore about feet. The point I'm making is every part of school has a smell to the point where most people can remember it, and we can talk about it and we can laugh about it. Imagine what that's like for someone who's got extreme sensitivity to smell. At the very beginning of the year, I was asked by the head of maths, can you just pop into such and such's lesson? Because every time I go in there, their perfume hits me like I've walked into some kind of, you know, weather front. And I said, okay, really, do I have to? Because obviously I don't want to have to interact with anybody that I don't actually have to. But I thought I would do my bit. Because she was concerned, and fair play to her, you know, the head of maths, fantastic, you know, awareness. She was concerned that some of the fair number of autistic students we had in school were going to be struggling with this very strong perfumey smell. And I think it was added to by one of those glass evil things that are kind of filled with a sort of oil and sticks. You know, it looks a bit like an odd kind of grenade or something, but it kind of lets off this extraordinarily strong smell. So it was a bit of a worry. So I went in. I'd never spoken to this teacher before. I mean, obviously, you can count on fingers of one hand how many teachers I have spoken to. But so I had to kind of think of a way to, you know, how do I do this? I can't just walk in and go, smell inspector, here I am. Oh dear. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I thought that might come across quite badly. You know, even I'm not so autistic that I can't see that that might not be appropriate in a social situation. So I just pretended that I was lost. I'd worked in the school for 10 years. But the sad thing is, they believe me. They know me well enough, even if I don't know them. So I kind of stumbled in. Oh, hello. Hello, sorry. Do you know where such and such is? And they were very helpful, but goodness me, the smell. I mean, no, I'm not being horrible to the lady at all, of course. You know, it's an element of awareness that we haven't got yet, but it was so incredibly strong. And I don't have a massive intolerance to smell. For me, it's only certain smells, certain types of smell that cause me tremendous problems. This smell, for me, wasn't too bad, but I could tell that, my word, there was no escaping it. I knew that if I was in that room as an autistic child, that would be probably the only thing I would be able to think about for the entire time I was in that room. You know, I'd probably be holding my breath for the whole time. Not literally, I mean, I don't think you'd last that long. But, you know, doing that thing, I don't know if you can do it, where you kind of close the flaps up at the back of your mouth. You know, it's better that you can't do this. This is socially unacceptable. You know, you're not allowed to do this. So what you do it kind of at the back of your throat instead. You sort of close that bit up and you don't, therefore, get it coming in. And that's tiring. It's not a very nice feeling, and it's going to be very distracting. So, I mean, that was meant to be a brief illustration that you'll see where this is. I can't do anything without going off on tangents, I'm afraid. That was meant to be a brief illustration of the kind of problem that an autistic child might have that the vast majority of teachers and other students might be completely unaware of. I mean, like I say, fair play to the head of maths for being on the ball with that. I thought that was really, really good. So, to kind of wind back, I'm going to kind of walk you through the school day now. Okay, not literally, of course, but we're going to start with the whole idea of, you know, getting up in the morning, the whole idea of getting over to school and starting the day, and kind of identifying the moments or the possible issues that might arise, pardon me, at those given moments. So, for example, sorry, I just had a horrible thought. I just shouldn't say this, but I'm going to because it's me. I just remember, I had a memory then of passing gas. I just, you know, that happened, and I suddenly thought, excuse me, I apologize, like the session said yesterday, sorry, this is what you get, I'm sorry. Right, so, back to the beginning of the day. So the autistic student wakes up. Let's imagine that autistic student has a particular special interest at the moment, a really big one, something that they love. And I'm going to be awfully stereotypical here, and I do apologize. But just for ease of communication, I'm going to go with that their special interest at this moment in time is Minecraft. Are you familiar with Minecraft? You better be. You're at an autism conference. Come on. I mean, yeah, it is stereotypical. My goodness, there is something very inherently autistic about that game. I'm a fan myself, that's why I use it as an example. But let's imagine that this student, let's say they're a 13-year-old girl, loves Minecraft. They're really into it at the moment. Now, the neurotypical people in here might not know how it feels to have that sort of focused interest, that obsession of the moment. But I would imagine that the autistic people in the audience are more familiar about the kind of thing I'm talking about. And they might recognize the feeling of waking up in the morning and the first thing that child thinks about, because they probably went to bed thinking about it, is their current project on Minecraft. Or whatever their special interest is. And they wake up and they're thinking about it. They're planning it in their head. They're wondering about how they're going to manage it, how they're going to achieve building this wonderful thing they're trying to build. You know, like a big statue of a cow or something like that. You know, something impressive. And that is what they are totally focused on. Mum and dad come in, you know, oh, come on, gotta have breakfast, gotta have a shower. No, can't do that. Literally cannot do that. I have got to, at the very least, think about this a little bit more. Or, ideally, get on the computer and at least make a start. It's such an unbelievably powerful feeling that when it's denied you, and it will often have to be denied you because we live in a world where we can't just do whatever we want whenever we want to, the result can be really quite debilitating. It really can. So this student, let's say, you know, they've got this big idea, but they've got to get ready for school, they've got to. You know, they've got to have a shower, they've got to get ready. All the way through, they're going to resent each one of those little tasks that they've got to do that morning. Each and every one. There might even be a battle. The parents might not even know why it's such a battle. Normally, every morning, it's fine. Why this morning are you being so difficult? Why are you making this such a chore? Get your clothes on, get ready for school, get your uniform on. I think there's very little understanding about what that kind of visceral need to do your thing that you do feels like. So at the very beginning of the day, something like that can go wrong. I mean, I say go wrong, I mean, it's not inherently wrong, it's just not ideal for the situation. And that can have a knock-on effect then across the rest of the day. Really quite a serious one. But what else can happen? Well, they're going to have to get into their uniform, aren't they? I think it's fair to say that still the vast majority of schools in this country at least have some kind of school uniform. The school I work at is very, I mean, it's not traditional, it's a very new school, but they went down the traditional route. You know, we've got houses. I think somebody had been reading Chamber of Secrets, and they thought, yes, what we need are 4 houses, a red one, a yellow one, a blue one, and a green one. I don't think they thought about the stigma that would be attached to the greenhouse. Not the greenhouse, you know, the greenhouse. You know, you can call it Brunel as much as you like. Good luck to you. But everyone else in the school, especially the red house, are just thinking Slytherin, 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 all the time. Okay, everyone hates them. Poor guys. They've done nothing wrong. You know, they weren't chosen by a sorting hat. They were just literally randomly placed in it. But there we are. Very traditional sort of setup. And like that, we have tie and blazer combination. You know, black trousers, white shirt, buttoned up to the top, tie, got to be done properly as well. You know, there's a handy little logo on the tie, which should be in the right place. You know how that works. And a big black chunky blazer, which is weirdly filled with secret pockets. That's not relevant, but it is interesting. You know, if I was designing a blazer for a school child, I would not think of filling it with places for contraband. You know, guess what I've got in here? This little one down here. You know, it's amazing. You say to them, come on then, guys, what you got? And they go, right, okay, zip, 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 zip. You know, they've got all these pockets. Bring it. Very strange. I don't know what they were thinking. But anyway, that's probably the only thing they like about their uniform. Probably every single element of that uniform, if you're involved with autistic people, you will know there's going to be a significant issue with those things. Okay, you've got the tie. First of all, as a kind of mechanical action, as a complex set of actions, putting on a tie is hard. Okay? It is hard. What better way to start your day than be reminded that you can't do your own tie? I'd love that. You know, every single day that you get up for school, you're reminded in a kind of, in a very short, unpleasant way, that you are incapable of doing something that your peers can do. That's nice. That puts you in the right frame of mind for a stressful day ahead. Let's say that, you know, your older sibling, your mum, your dad, sort your tie out, or you've got to wear one of those clip-on ones. You know, clip-on tie. Everyone always goes, yeah, perfect. Perfect solution for any students that can't do ties. Give them a clip-on tie. That helps. Because, of course, the other students won't figure it out within milliseconds that this person's wearing a clip-on tie, and they won't use that as a source of bullying ammunition for the rest of that person's life. No, that won't happen. Of course it happens. Don't wear the tie. Don't demand a tie. This is where I start to get a bit, these are the things that we could do. Okay? The whole idea of, you know, trying to improve the lot of an autistic child by finding ways around them wearing the tie. You know, contorting ourselves in all these different directions. There must be a way to get them to wear the tie. Take the tie off. They don't have to wear the tie. If they take the tie off, they don't combust. You know, it's not going to, you know, prevent them from, it's not going to turn their ears off. You know, they're not going to suddenly be unable to work. It's a very odd phenomenon that you get. You know, these things are so ingrained that we can't think of just kind of saying, actually, get rid of that. You've got the shirt buttons as well. Right up to the top here. Now, it's not just an autistic thing, but, you know, most autistic people will have a problem with that. But, you know, the constraining feel of that. The constraining feel of that top button. I have never done my top button up. I've just blankly refused the whole time. The head teachers eventually just had to let me get away with it. But there was a time, you know, where even as an adult, I was reminded sometimes in the corridor. I'd be walking down the corridor. Teacher, tall, bearded, you know, proper adult person. I'd be walking down the corridor and the head would go, Pete, top button, mate. You want it done up, you do it yourself. Come on, come on. Because I'm not doing it. A, it's too fiddly, and B, it'll make me feel like I'm dying, quite honestly. Okay? But we insist, don't we? The shirt, long sleeves. Anyone ever watch The American Office? Help me out. There's a wonderful bit, you know Dwight in The American Office, the angry man. You know, I think almost certainly, you know, he's certainly sort of signalled as autistic. I'm not sure that was necessarily the aim, but it certainly comes across that way. He has a time period where he's told to wear long sleeves. And he can't cope with it at all, can't handle it. And the moment that he gets to go back to short sleeve shirts is his happiest moment ever. He's just so much happier for it. And it's because of that feeling, the texture on the arms. I mean, I'm not being funny, but for a lot of autistic people, the less texture touching your skin, the better. You know, walk around in tiny shorts and a vest most of the time, I think, if we could get away with it, just to stop that sort of feel. Certainly for some autistic children, especially, that can be a significant issue. But the child puts on their uniform. They're thinking about Minecraft the whole time, sure, but they get it on, grudgingly, a bit of an argument with the parents. They put their tie on, their tie's done up. They've got their long sleeve shirt on, buttoned up to the top. They have some breakfast. They're probably not feeling particularly hungry because they're stressed. They've probably got a feeling at the pit of their stomach, kind of gurgly, horrible feeling that they get whenever they're nervous. And they are nervous all of the time. And, you know, mum, dad, whoever is saying, eat your toast, eat your cornflakes, a few spoons in, can't do any more. So not only are they stressed, anxious, distracted, Minecraft, uncomfortable, they're now going to be hungry fairly soon because I mean, who can eat when they're feeling nervous? I can't eat very well. I didn't have breakfast this morning, not really. I was at a hotel, I had a free breakfast. I went up to it and looked at it and thought, no. I was then gifted a bacon sandwich, which, to be fair, I did consume because it was a bacon sandwich, you know, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But, you know, to be fair, even that was difficult because I'm nervous, you know, it's anxiety-inducing. But for some students, that is their life. They live in a state of extreme anxiety. But beyond all expectations, and I think if you took this out of context and examined it coldly, without, you know, sort of preconceptions, you would think, my God, this child has managed to leave the house. That's amazing. I'm not sure I could, after all of this happening. But they do, and they do it every day, don't they? Every single day. Suddenly you start to realize where the school refusers might be coming from. But our kind of hypothetical child leaves school. Sorry, no, leaves the house. They walk to the bus stop. At the bus stop, there are lots of people, lots of students, lots of children who are neurotypical, who are having their peculiar, coded, kind of half conversations that people have. You know those conversations where nothing is actually said? It's like conversations without any nouns. You ever come across that phenomenon? Autistic people will probably know what I'm talking about. Those conversations that kind of go, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh God, yeah, that thing. Oh, mad, wasn't it? Mad. And you just, content? Where's the content in this? What is it that you are talking about? Because I can't get into this. I can't access this at all. And if you're anxious, and you're nervous, and you're worried, what's your brain going to do to you? It'll become your own worst enemy, and it will whisper very seductively in your ear, they're talking about you. Because from your point of view, the only reason to be what appears to be secretive, you know, about the contents of a conversation, the only reason anyone would ever have to do that would be if they didn't want the people around them to know what they were talking about. Now, neurotypical people say, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. It's just the way you talk, fine. But for an autistic person, the logical kind of explanation of a group of people not being clear about who they're talking about or what they're talking about is obvious. They are talking about someone in this area, and they don't want them to know. And that's bound to be you, because you're different. So where are we? Didn't get to play Minecraft, uncomfortable uniform, starting to get a bit hungry, now feels panicky that the other students are joking about them behind their back. That, of course, is made worse by the fact that that can be guaranteed that that will have happened, you know, for definite at some point in the past. That's the other thing, isn't it? It's one thing being paranoid. It's the other thing, realizing that your paranoia is justified and discovering one day that actually, yeah, they definitely were talking about you. Well, from that point on, what are you going to be thinking? But this incredible kind of superhero of a young student persists. They carry on. They stand there, smiling perhaps. They've been taught that's the way to do it. At the little, circus of merriment occurring between their peers over here. They're smiling on the fringes of that because, they know that's a way to not kind of attract rebuke. And they just cope with it. They've learned how to do that. They've learned how to mix and match in a neurotypical environment. They've learned how to, what we call, mask. That's tiring, that's exhausting, and it leads you to second guessing all the time as well. But they climb on the bus. The bus is smelly, it's dirty, it's old. Don't need to go into any of those. I'm sure you've already got the idea that that kind of stuff is going to cause a problem. It's very noisy. And our hypothetical human sits down, and someone sits right next to them. I think if I were telling my own story, that would probably be the point that I would give up, to be quite honest. That would be the point where after all of this, someone sits next to me at that point. No, that's it now. I give up, game over, reset, let me off the bus, I want to go home. Because that would just be the straw that broke the camel's back for me. The idea of having someone else's presence imposed upon you. Because we're not in a situation or a society where we can say, oh, sorry, I'm terribly sorry. If you could not sit there, that would be fantastic. I'm autistic, you see. I don't like people sitting near me. It makes me very, very, very unhappy and very stressed. So if you could please go and sit over there, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much. We are not in a position where we can say that at all. I mean, a lot of the time, we're not in a position to say anything. We're too nervous. But even if we were, if someone were to say something along those lines, the chances of there being a negative reaction is very, very high indeed. Especially, in inner cities where people are a little bit more outward about their emotional states. Do that in London or Manchester or Birmingham, even Bristol. And I really think that could be end up quite unpleasant. So what we do, autistic people, and certain types of introverted neurotypical people too, when we get on a train or a bus, we pray. We pray to whatever deity or thing we hold dear to ourselves. I, for example, pray to Denmark. Billund, source of plastic goodness. I'm talking about Lego. Just get that out there. That's how I pray to them. But you pray to them. You pray to them desperately. Do not let anyone sit next to me. Do not let anyone sit next to me. Every stop, every station you arrive in, you look out the window, how many people are waiting. You do a little bit of quick, not so much arithmetic as just kind of probability. There's like 20 people out there. There's only like 25 seats. Oh, the probability of someone sitting next to me is now extraordinarily high. And everything starts to collapse. And that happens every time you stop. I hate traveling on public transport for that reason. I love traveling on public transport for lots of reasons. Greta Thunberg's in Bristol today. I agree with the whole idea of public transport as a green initiative, to kind of concentrate. If we have to spew out gases, then at least concentrate it into a more efficient kind of way of doing it. But on the other hand, I hate it because all the time, the entire journey, I am terrified. My dream would be to get on a train in London, on a train trip all the way up to, let's say, what's ridiculous. There isn't a train line, but I'd just imagine one, to John O'Groats, with no stops along the way. You get on with the people you get on with, you choose yourself, ideally a table seat to yourself, and nothing's going to disturb that. That'd be beautiful. Never going to happen, unfortunately. So our child is sitting there, they've got someone next to them, this is all adding up. I'm sure you can see where I'm going here. Just endless layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of anxiety and fear and overthinking and stress, and they haven't even got to school yet. At this point, they haven't even been told off by a teacher or realized they've forgotten their homework, because they will have done, almost guaranteed at some point in an autistic student's life. or had to deal with the ramifications of the lunch haul, as I mentioned earlier. None of that's even happened yet. It's only, what, 8:40 in the morning in this little tale that I'm spinning. And already I would wager some of you who are less used to a feeling of chronic stress will be curled up in a ball, sobbing by this point, quite frankly. But she's not. She's not, because she's used to this. Do you remember the charts yesterday of the cortisol response being so muted for the person that experiences chronic stress? Because, you know, you become almost not really immune to it, because that suggests positivity. You become unable to even benefit from your body's, you know, limited ability to help you handle stress. You know, that starts to fall away, and you're kind of left on your own. But our hypothetical person is still going. They go into school, and then you start the routine. You start the routine of school. Now, it is very often thought, and I myself have said this in the past on Twitter and in person, that the routine of the school day is a fantastic boon for the autistic child and teacher. And I think to an extent it is. But I think we risk being too positive about that, to be quite honest with you. It is good that, you know, we know where we're going to be. You know, we have our timetable, and we're going to be in English there, maths, French, and that'll be the same every week or every other week, however it works. And lunchtime's always at the same time, and break time's always at the same time, and home time's always the same time. That is admittedly good for people, you know, for autistic people, generally speaking. You know, that sense of knowing where you are in the day is very, very, very helpful. Really helps. But it's immutable. That's the problem. It may well be a nice, steady routine, but it's got no flexibility. Not really. And this goes for both students and teachers. You know, taking it just from the teacher point of view for a moment, the worst thing really about my job is the fact that if I'm teaching year 10 at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning, that's going to happen. You know, that you can't put that off. You can't procrastinate. In other jobs, you can say, oh, I've got this to do. Oh, I'll do that after lunch. I'll do that tomorrow. I don't feel very well. I'm going to do something easier. You know, I can't decide of a morning, I feel rough. I've got a terrible headache. You know, big argument on Twitter last night. Left me reeling. I'm tired. I'm stressed. Year 7. I'll teach year 7. Come on, year 7, in you come. In you come. You come here and you sit here for a few hours. Do a bit of writing for a bit, yeah? Can you write for 3 hours? Yeah? I'll give you a story title. You can illustrate it if you like, yeah? Bubble writing. We can't do that. That's not how education works. Certainly not in the secondary sector. And not really in the primary either, although sometimes when I was at primary school it did feel a bit like that. You know, if you're getting year 11, and they are horrible and frightening and terrifying, you're getting year 11 and there's no way out of that. For an autistic teacher, that can be very stressful. And of course, if you want to get out of it, you know, I had to do this a couple of weeks ago. I came down with a migraine, as I often do. And I had to email my, the kind of, what they called? Not PR, that's something, HR, that's the one. The HR person, fairly, she doesn't like me very much. You know, sickly as I am, she's not a huge fan. But I emailed her saying, look, I basically pretty much can't see. It's a wonder I'm even emailing you now, but I've got a really bad migraine. I cannot do this afternoon. And she emails back saying, well, there's no one to cover. Oh, well, that's good. Excellent. So what do you want me to do? Shall I lie on the floor and just let year 11 come in? You know, hopefully not tread on me. You know, because they're going to sit down, aren't they? You know, nice and well behaved and get on with their work with a teacher lying askance on the floor, possibly, you know, emitting low groans at regular intervals. That's going to go very well. There is no flexibility. Schools tend to be working on a shoestring, both in terms of finance and time and staffing. You know, everything is tight, everything is limited, everything is at the very limit of what it can be. So if you're an autistic teacher or an autistic student, you have to fit in. You have to acknowledge and accept that set of rules. If you want to get out of the lesson, then you have to have had some kind of long, lengthy conversation with a Senko or someone like that. before you're allowed to get what we call a timeout card. Have you come across timeout cards? You kind of flash it at a teacher, you know, and then they say, okay, go on then, off you go. Apart from the fact, of course, they don't. A lot of teachers look at that and they just see it as a way of getting out the lesson and get very cross with you. So this routine idea, yeah, it's great, it's fantastic, routine can be helpful, but it can actually be also very, very, very limiting and very damaging at times. You know, why is it that we've got to always be in those classrooms? A bit like the tie thing, just take the tie off. If I've got autistic students in my class, which I do have a lot, because for some reason the school keeps giving them to me to look after, who knows why, then, you know, and I've got one lad, I won't name him, you know, got to be GDPR and everything, but one lad who struggles. He's very, very good, you know, he can get his work done, he'll pass his GCSEs for sure. But sometimes he just needs to doodle. He really does. Sometimes he has to sit in the corner, take out his sketchbook and just draw pictures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I can empathise with that. I used to do that when I was a kid myself. You know, Sonic's been around for a long time now, longer than I care to think about, actually, thinking about it. 29 years. Anyway, and he likes doing that, and I will let him. I will let him. Have you done some work, little Jimmy? He's not little, he's nearly as tall as me. Have you done some work, little Jimmy? You have. That's good. Are you okay? Okay. Do you want to draw? You draw. Just get on with it. Just do some drawing, mate. If that makes your day a little bit easier. Imagine if he's had the morning that our little hypotheticals had. And then you turn to them and just say, you know what? You draw. You do that. Or, actually, everyone's working. Do you want to just talk to me briefly about that thing you want to do on Minecraft? You know, I'll listen. I might not always understand. In fact, I might not have a clue what you're talking about. I had somebody telling me a lot about horses the other day. Autistic boy, actually. You know, non-stereotypical. Autistic boy telling me about horses and horse riding to great length. Of a break time, he just kind of cornered me. You know, he was standing in my classroom door. I was about to go down to get a panini from the canteen. And then scurried back up to my room before anything happened. But he was standing there and he wanted to come in, he wanted to talk. He knew that I would be up for listening, because I always am. And he came in and he talked to me for a long, long time about horses. And I'll tell you what, I learned a lot. I did learn a lot. You know, I knew nothing before, I know a little bit now. That was nice. You know, as a teacher, I can kind of value that. That was really good. But he had to let it out. He had to get it off his chest. He'd probably been carrying that around with him all day, looking for a safe place to kind of let it kind of spew out, if you like, to use a gross analogy. Okay, and you know, I'm there in this school. I can do that, but not all schools have got a you know, a kind of comfortably autistic teacher who's happy to you know, kind of have that part of their identity be quite out there. You know, that's not necessarily across the board. You know, most schools probably will have an autistic teacher, whether they know it or not. The chances, I'd say, are fairly high. But, you know, we can't, should we have to say that, you know, it's the job of the autistic teachers to be the ones that listen to the horse talks? I mean, though I'm happy to do it, that seems to me to be a little bit weird. You know, just because I'm autistic doesn't mean I want to hear about everyone's special interest. You know, that's not how it works. I'm happy to talk about them and all the rest of it. I'm happy to listen because I'm trying to help the kid. But all teachers can do that, can't they? You know, every teacher on the planet presumably can sit down and listen to being talked at for a little while by a really impassioned kid about their interest. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because no one really knows, do they? No one really knows what they're talking about. When we're talking about the large-scale educational world. I told my head teacher that I was autistic 2 years ago, and, you know, you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, I can hear a pin drop anyway, but, you know, anyone could have heard a pin drop. You know? But you're so good in front of people. Okay, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment because it is, but I don't really see your point. But, you know, you've got a degree. Yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, that's not relevant, mate. You know, because there is this Stone Age understanding that I think we in the autism sphere, bubble, on Twitter, online, places like this, we can feel a kind of sense of hope, possibly false hope. Yeah, people get it. People get autism. It's amazing. You know, I talked to loads of people at this autistic conference, and they all really got it. They all really understood about autism. And then I went on Twitter, and my 14,000 followers, who are nearly all autistic, liked and retweeted all my things. It's like, I mean, that's great, but it's easy to overlook the fact that there are a lot of people out there who best will in the world. You know, they're not mean people. They're not evil. You know, they're not kind of purposefully going about their days thinking, how can I ruin this child's life? They do exist, but there's not many of them. They're not evil, but they just don't know. We've been doing autism awareness for years now. And there are still a lot of people, too many people, in important areas. Education, health. I mean, the whole thing about NHS people now having mandatory training on autism. It's 2020, and only now, only after, because I think that's the one that was led to, you know, the whole Oliver's campaign, wasn't it? You know what I'm talking about? It takes that to happen, for that to happen. What's it going to take in the education sector? You know, for people to actually start really taking notice. And this is how I want to really end, in a really angry, kind of ranty sort of way. Not at you people, we are doing what we are doing. We are trying our blooming best. We can only do what we can do. We're only, you know, individuals. But I think we have to realize that there is a whole world of just not knowing out there that we still have to do a lot of work to combat. Because until every teacher in every classroom knows that their autistic student might just want to talk about something and then they'll get their work done, we haven't done the job. Because that's not hard. That's not going to be, you know, that's not going to be impossible to achieve. But we need that to happen. Every single frontline person in all of these different services and industries need to have that understanding before we're going to have a world where our hypothetical child can wake up in the morning and maybe gradually over the course of the day only get half as stressed. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not going to have any stress at all. Sensory stuff alone is going to cause some, and you can't avoid some of it. But imagine if we could just reduce some of that stress to a slightly more manageable level just by knowing a little bit more. So that's what, I mean, I'm going to keep doing stuff. You know, I mean, I'm working, obviously, I work in a school, so I've got my own opportunity to make things better at our school. And I'm aiming to make our school a kind of mainstream beacon of how you should be doing things as best as you possibly can. But, you know, I think as we leave today and leave this conference, we need to go away thinking about the fact that, you know, there is, as great as it is that there is more understanding now, there is still an awful lot of work to do, I think. So I've kind of come to a natural end there, slightly early. Does that mean I'm now in trouble? Because I won't be able to cope with that. It does, however, give us more opportunity for questions. And I love questions. Like I said, as long as they're not too personal. So if anyone has a question that they want to ask me while I'm standing here in the lights, then please do. Any show of hands.
Microphones. So please wait for somebody to come to you with a microphone or go to a microphone stand.
Hi, thank you for very interesting insight, feedback. I'm really interested in what the young people, their reactions, what they know about you and the kind of neurotypical and the autistic and all of them. How are you going down with them?
Well, they love it, to be quite honest. The autistic kids that I teach, I've got a lot of them in year 11. I've got this kind of year 11 set where we've got a lot of boys. There are some autistic girls in there too, but you know, it is primarily boys, and probably around 2/3 of the class, half the class, 2/3 of the class are autistic. Okay, so and we talk about it openly. You know, I've talked to them about this very openly, you know, in our little downtime between tasks. And they think it's great. You know, they're really happy. And I'm getting good results out of them. It feels like we're, in talking about it openly, we are demystifying it completely. And the other students in the class who aren't autistic now are really interested. They ask questions, which I think is lovely. Like one of them asked the other day, do you like Lego because of the feel? Then, sir. Kind of a bit personal. But yeah, I do actually. You know, there's something about that kind of crunchy feel, and especially the tiny little bits. Anyone here a Lego fan? Come on, those tiny little ones, you know, little studs. Handfuls of those. Yes, please. Delightful. So, you know, they're asking questions, they're interested. And I think with interest comes acceptance. You know, they're only going to be interested in something they accept and are happy and comfortable to talk about. The neurotypical kids across the board, I mean, the sixth formers especially, are fascinated. They ask questions sometimes. There's no stigma, certainly. I haven't had any stigma directed at me since I sort of, you know, came out as autistic to them a couple of years ago. And I can't say the same within the school for some of the autistic children do still get a bit of grief. But because there is now a good chance that I'm going to get involved in that helps kind of prevent that too, because apparently I'm quite scary. Who knew? But there we are. So it has been very positive. I can't say that would always be the case in every school everywhere, but for me, certainly it's been positive. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Thank you so much. Following on from that, I wondered whether your colleagues in the staff room, the head teacher, when you came out in your terms, did they make reasonable adjustments if necessary? Did they ask about how they could support you in any way?
They did, yes. They certainly tried their best. I had to lead that though. You know, they didn't have to hand a kind of list of things that they could say, so do you want this, or this? Because it had never happened before. You know, I was the first, I mean, I wasn't the first autistic teacher they've had, but, you know, officially I was. So I had to very much lead that. I had to tell them what I wanted, which I wasn't very comfortable doing for reasons, you know, rocking the boat and all the rest of it. But I did, I held to my guns. And, you know, I've got a few things. I've got a fan in my room now that I have on my desk pointing at my face all the time on, which is nice. I don't have to phone parents because I've got a real issue with phones. I'm allowed to email them. There is an understanding that if I really have to phone someone, like if a parent is adamant, then I can do, you know, with conversation with the head and maybe they'll help me out or something like that, or we'll get them in, talk to them face to face. So that really helps. Those kind of things help. But like I say, I had to lead that discussion. And if I hadn't been so kind of determined, because, you know, part of the problem for me was my mental health had deteriorated so badly before I got my diagnosis. I really had to sort things out, otherwise I was going to get worse. So I was very determined. I do worry that for some autistic teachers, if they were to try and get these adjustments, that they would be sort of, you know, left quite short-handed, probably fobbed off a little bit. I think there's scope for that, certainly. It would depend so much on the individual nature of your HR department and your SLT, sadly, that I think some people might not get what they need. So what we need is a kind of central bank of, this is what you should ask for. You know, these are the things that I think, you know, are perfectly reasonable, that you should be able to ask for and you should be able to get. That would be helpful.
Hi.
Oh,
I think you've kind of answered a lot of my questions anyway from the other questions that were asked by the speakers, but quite interested how parents have actually perceived you as having autism and what your relationship has been with them and promoting their awareness of autism, and perhaps, you know, how does that work?
I mean, I don't have a huge amount of contact with parents, really. I mean, obviously for me, the most times I see parents are parents' evenings, you know, however many times a year, emails home, that kind of thing, and the occasional kind of after-school meeting to discuss something. And to be quite honest, it doesn't often come up, you know, in terms of them. Some of them won't even know, of course, and I won't necessarily say to them, you know, hello, shake hands. I'm autistic, by the way. But those that do know have been very supportive and positive. And I've had some very kind of high-quality conversations with parents of autistic children who have been very, very interested in what I've had to say to them, and we've, you know, and we've come up with kind of ways to help the children, both in person and also I've got quite a few parents following me on Twitter, which is a bit, you know, but hey-ho, just live with that. Stop swearing. But and that's been very positive too, you know, some nice online interaction with some of them, even kind of parents of ex-students who have kind of chased me up afterwards to, you know, talk to me about things. So, you know, really and truly, not very much negativity. Probably not as much positivity as I would like, or kind of action taken from it, but you know, I'm getting there, I'm building up to it.
Peter, I wanted to ask you, you talked about social media. Sorry, I'm behind you.
Hello, that was really
that
weird.
Threw you a bit, yeah. Sorry. I wanted to ask you about social media and Twitter in particular, because I know you say that you use Twitter a lot, but you also mentioned about the challenges, and sometimes you go to bed very anxious because you've had a bit of a fallout or something. So I just wondered what you felt were the opportunities or challenges for autistic people with Twitter.
I think it really is a poison chalice, to be honest. I think it's a very big, jewel-encrusted chalice with only a little bit of poison, but it's poison nevertheless, if you follow. It's a wonderful opportunity. You know, it's a way for people who might not like talking in person, people who might not like meeting people in real life, to actually have an opportunity to talk and share stories. And of course, you know, for me, the best thing about it is the breadth. You know, I mean, I spend a lot of my time talking to American autistic people, Canadian, French. I've got a big Peruvian following. I don't know why. I like it though. You know, and even if there's a language barrier, you know, Google Translate exists, so you can get through that, you know, to a relatively decent degree. And that's fantastic. That's brilliant, because it means you can share experiences and you can kind of share your anecdotes and try to kind of see that big picture, like Jill was talking about yesterday. You know, kind of piecing together a larger image from our individual experiences. But with Twitter and with any electronic communication, you've got the problem of the lack of what in English we would call paralinguistic features, which as a linguist you might know is to do with your body language, your facial expression, all those kind of things, that give hints and tips and clues as to what you're actually meaning at that time. So, you know, are you being sarcastic? Are you trying to be funny? Are you being sympathetic? Whatever it might be. Without that online, I mean, we've got emojis, but they don't quite bridge the gap. There is a huge chance for any kind of communication to be misunderstood. And of course, for the autistic population, that goes up tenfold. So I think I often find that some of the worst, what's the best word, like arguments or spats can actually occur within the community. Between, you know, people who are otherwise allied, because there's a misinterpretation going on, and I don't blame them, you know, and usually I think people are good at trying to figure it out and trying to, you know, smooth it back over again, but yeah, the nature of it means that's almost inevitable, I think. But like I say, I think the chalice is golden enough to make up for the little bit of poison.
We've got a question from one of our online delegates. So.
Ooh. Peruvian?
Maybe.
If so, they're very good with the Google Translate.
Excellent.
You mentioned that you've not come across stigma since you have disclosed. I am interested in understanding how you've experienced stigma before diagnosis.
Well, that's just people not liking me, isn't it? You know, it's, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I was very lucky. I was never bullied at school, not really. I think, you know, being tall helps. But I do remember, you know, certainly at university, people being very uncomfortable, I suppose you could say, with the fact that I might be happier sitting in a corner in a pub with a pint of ale than going clubbing with all of the woo girls that existed in Loughborough in the early 21st century. And that might lead to, you know, I was accused of being weird a lot, odd, you know, strange. Oh, you're a weirdo, Warmby, aren't you? Weird, you know, but I never really took that as an insult. It wasn't that bad, and they weren't physical about it, you know. And sometimes, you know, at school, for example, it was kind of endearing. You know, people kind of liked it. But that's very lucky, that's privileged. You know, that is not the case for everybody by any stretch. You know, I mean, people who, you know, if you do, because I masked, I didn't stim, not really. I had awkward style, you know, awkward gait, you know, way of walking, and I sit like I'm trying to curl myself up in a ball. And that would often be commented on, but I didn't do any of the things that might single you out a little bit more strongly, like you know, clear stimming or that kind of, like the boy, you know, telling people off and reminding them of the rules and that kind of thing, which is probably more likely to get you stigmatized, I would say.
Well, Peter, so thank you so much. I mean, personally, I find that really, really fascinating. As the parent of an autistic young man myself, it's making me reflect on the last 25 years on things that we could have done differently, and in future, I will be doing differently. I'm on a steep learning curve, and it's fascinating. But thank you so much. I feel that we should do a full applause.
We definitely should, but there's that. And also, I just really wanted to thank you so much for mentioning Minecraft. I've been on 3 days cold turkey at the moment because I've been putting together a talk. It's really hard. I need to go back to my happy place, thankfully, tonight. And a quick tip, if you want to make sure nobody sits next to you on a bus or a train, look weird, spin wool, dribble a bit helps as well.
Or
Miles away, it's great.
Or pass gas.
Or smell, yeah.
That never fails. And don't look at somebody else, just a broad smile. You know, and you know, that rare eye contact that you can manage, that's the moment. Big smile and eye contact, they're not going to sit next to you in a million years. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.